Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are absolutely fundamentally reframing a profoundly misunderstood moral concept. So, if you've ever heard the Islamic term taqwa, you've probably heard it defined simply as the fear of God. But what if I told you that translation drastically misses the heart of the matter? What if it's actually the ultimate key to ethical clarity and inner freedom? Well, today, we're going to completely rethink what moral restraint actually means. Here is the roadmap for our explainer journey today. We're going to start by debunking a very common myth. Then we'll explore a powerful metaphor about walking the edge, identify the true opposite of this concept, and uncover why the internal has to come before the external. Finally, we'll discover how restraint actually creates freedom, wrapping it all up with the concept of the inner compass. Let's get into it. Section 1. Beyond just fear. Debunking the myth. Okay, let's dive into this. The traditional shorthand for taqwa is fear of God. And look, while that's not entirely wrong, it is incredibly incomplete. I mean, it immediately evokes this image of a frightened, cowering servant shaking before a harsh master. But the reality? The reality is a much, much richer framework. It's really about vigilant moral awareness. It's the state of being completely awake to reality, to truth, and to God. It is absolutely not about shaking in your boots. It's about having your eyes wide open. To truly grasp this, we have to look at the linguistic foundation. Taqwa comes from the Arabic root waqa, which literally means to protect, shield, or guard. And honestly, this is a massive paradigm shift. It means this concept isn't primarily an emotion of terror, it's an orientation of profound self-protection. You are literally shielding your own soul. And that orientation leads us to a really high-stakes question. This is something I really want you to internalize right now. What kind of person must I become so that I don't destroy myself morally and spiritually? That right there is the real driving engine of taqwa. The focus isn't, how do I avoid getting punished? Actually, it's more like, how do I maintain my spiritual integrity so I don't ruin my own soul? Moving into section 2, walking the edge, the journey metaphor. And this brilliantly illustrates what we're talking about. Now that we know the goal is self-protection, what does this actually feel like in practice? Imagine someone hiking along the sheer edge of a mountain cliff. They don't constantly tremble in blind terror, right? If they did, they'd fall. Instead, they remain hyper-alert, they watch their footing carefully, and they deeply respect the danger. Panicking gets you killed. That hyper-focused attentiveness, that profound respect for the drop right beside you, is exactly what taqwa feels like when you're navigating the moral landscape. It's really cool because it builds into this elegant progression. Step 1 is huda, or guidance. Think of it as the map that points out reality. Step 2 is iman, which is trusting acceptance. It's believing that the map is actually accurate. But, knowing the path and trusting the map just aren't enough on their own. Step 3 is taqwa. It's the physical, deliberate, careful act of actually walking that path. And what's super fascinating here is that the sources tell us this is a cycle. You can only truly benefit from the map if you have enough humility and caution, enough taqwa, to accept it in the first place. Now, if this still sounds a little abstract, think about familiar forms of calibrated seriousness in our everyday lives. A scientist isn't paralyzed by fear in the lab, but they deeply, deeply fear falsifying data. A surgeon doesn't tremble while holding the scalpel, but they absolutely fear making a careless incision. A judge fears condemning an innocent person. Their caution doesn't come from terror. It simply reflects the immense, life-altering importance of what they're handling. Taqwa is exactly this. It's the appropriate seriousness that comes from recognizing the ultimate significance of your own existence. Section 3. The trap of heedlessness, the true opposite. Sometimes, to really understand the light, we have to take a hard look at the dark. You might naturally assume that the opposite of this hypervigilant God consciousness is simply disbelief. But actually, scratch that. The true opposite is heedlessness. It's drifting through life completely asleep at the wheel, just running on pure autopilot. Think of it like modern doom scrolling, where you're just consuming and consuming without an ounce of awareness. It's blindly following your impulses without restraint, confusing your personal desires with actual truth, and refusing any sort of correction out of sheer pride. The crazy thing is you can be highly intelligent, super wealthy, and even outwardly religious and still be completely heedless. The core issue is a total lack of moral awareness. Which brings us to Section 4, internal before external, the heart of the matter. This highlights a major, major misconception, the idea that taqwa is just about strictly following a checklist of outward rules. The truth? The focus is consistently shifted inward. You can give a fortune to charity, but without sincerity, it completely lacks taqwa. You can pray all day, but without mindfulness, it lacks taqwa. You can wear all the religious symbols in the world, but without real ethical transformation, it's just empty. There is even this striking verse regarding animal sacrifices that explicitly states that neither the meat nor the blood ever reaches God. The only thing that reaches him is your taqwa. Outward acts absolutely matter, but only as genuine expressions of a real inward reality. Section 5. Freedom through restraint, breaking the chains. Now, what's really interesting about this is how counterintuitive it is. We almost always assume that strict morality limits our freedom, right? That rules tie us down. But the reality is that moral restraint is actually what liberates us, because every unrestrained appetite eventually becomes your master. If you don't actively restrain your greed, your vanity, your anger, or your endless pursuit of status, you literally become enslaved to them. Taqwa isn't about saying a miserable, restrictive no to life. It is the incredibly empowering refusal to become a servant to your own passing impulses. And this inevitably leads to one of the most remarkable features of taqwa: intense intellectual humility. A person guided by this awareness operates on a profound, unwavering principle. Truth is more important than my ego. They constantly admit that they might be mistaken. They recognize the absolute need to verify things before judging, and they openly acknowledge that their own desires can easily deceive them. Taqwa is the ultimate antidote to arrogance. It produces a mind that is forever teachable because it understands that knowledge without integrity is ultimately useless. Finally, Section 6, the inner compass, a concise synthesis. So the crucial point is really bringing all of these incredible threads together. Taqwa is a cultivated state of God-conscious moral vigilance that protects us from spiritual ruin, keeping us strictly aligned with truth. It is not merely fear. It's this brilliant, active integration of awareness, humility, self-restraint, and deep responsibility. It's living your life aligned with truth, even when absolutely no one else is watching you. It isn't the finish line of the spiritual journey, guys. It is the compass that makes the journey possible in the first place. Which leaves us with one final, deeply personal question for you to ponder today. As you navigate the daily complexities of your own life, will you let your inner compass guide you? Or will you drift along the cliff edge in total heedlessness? The choice between vigilant awareness and sleeping at the wheel is yours to make every single day. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, keep cultivating that inner compass, and I'll see you next time.